The email arrived at 3:17 a.m. local time while I was stationed at a forward operating base in northern Syria. "I can't do this anymore, David. I've filed for divorce. Please don't contact me." Sandwiched between a security briefing report and a message from my mother asking if I'd received her care package. My hands trembled as I read it again, struggling to comprehend. By the time I tried to access our joint account, all $213,000 was gone. Our entire life savings, house fund, everything. The military satellite connection kept dropping as I frantically refreshed the screen, hoping it was a mistake. It wasn't. What Rebecca didn't know was that I'd been tracking her unusual behavior for months before my deployment. Something felt wrong, and I'd quietly prepared. She thought she'd left me with nothing while I was defending our country. She had no idea what was coming. My name is David Mercer, 34 years old, military intelligence officer with 12 years of service to the United States Army. I specialized in information systems and cyber operations, the kind of work that happens behind computers rather than behind rifles, though I'd had my share of combat training. I'd met Rebecca at a friend's wedding 8 years ago. She was vivacious, smart, working as a pharmaceutical sales rep with an impressive client list and ambition that matched my own. We married after 14 months of dating, bought a house in Alexandria, Virginia, and settled into what I thought was a happy life. When I wasn't deployed, I worked at the Pentagon. Rebecca traveled frequently for her job, but we made the most of our time together. We were saving aggressively for early retirement, a shared dream of opening a small business together once I completed my military service. That's why we maintained the joint account with substantial savings. My unit had been deployed 4 times during our marriage, but this 5th deployment was different. A 9-month stint coordinating intelligence operations against insurgent networks. Rebecca had seemed supportive, but distant in the weeks before I left. "It's just stress," she'd said when I asked if everything was okay. "I'll be fine once I adjust to you being gone again." I believed her, trusted her completely. The first sign something was wrong came about 2 months into the deployment. Her video calls became less frequent, her responses to messages delayed by days. "Work is crazy," she explained, "taking on new territories while Melissa is on maternity leave." Plausible, but something in her voice didn't sound right. In intelligence work, you develop an ear for inconsistencies. Then the credit card alerts started coming. Small at first, expensive restaurant charges in cities where she had no business meetings scheduled. A weekend at a hotel in Miami when she'd told me she was visiting her sister in Pittsburgh. I didn't confront her immediately. In my line of work, you learn to gather information methodically before drawing conclusions. I had Thompson, my closest friend in the unit, check our main account one night when my secure terminal was tied up with work tasks. "Dude, there's been some big transfers," he said quietly. "About $30,000 moved to a separate account last week. An account I knew nothing about. I should have said something then. Instead, I watched and waited, hoping there was an explanation that wouldn't destroy the life we'd built. Maybe she was planning a surprise. Maybe she was helping a family member. The alternative was too painful to consider. Then came the email. No explanation, no discussion, just 14 words that ended 8 years of marriage. The joint account, emptied the same day she sent it. I sat on my bunk in the darkened barracks, other officers sleeping around me, and felt a cold clarity settle in. The Rebecca I thought I knew would never do this. The woman who actually did this, I needed to understand who she really was. The next morning, I approached Captain Reynolds, my commanding officer, and explained the situation. "I need emergency leave, sir." I handed him my tablet with the email displayed. He scanned it, jaw tightening. "Jesus, Mercer, I'm sorry." He looked up at me. "We're short-staffed with Harrison evac last week. I can get you stateside in 10 days. Best I can do." I nodded once. 10 days. Time enough to plan my next moves carefully. That night, I sent a Single text to my brother Michael back home. Emergency. Need your help. Call me secure line tomorrow 0800 your time. Michael was an attorney with a practice in Arlington. I'd need his expertise. When he called, I laid out the situation clinically, as if briefing an operation. She did what? Michael's voice crackled over the secure line. That money's half yours, David. She can't legally— I know, I interrupted. But right now, she has it all. I need you to do something for me without asking too many questions. Silence on the line then. I'm your brother. Tell me what you need. First, don't tell anyone I'm coming home. Not Mom, not your wife, no one. Second, I need you to pull our prenuptial agreement from your files. Third, I need you to quietly find out if Rebecca has hired a lawyer yet, and who. The prenup had been Rebecca's idea, ironically. Her parents had gone through a messy divorce, and she insisted we protect ourselves. The agreement clearly stated that money earned during the marriage was community property, regardless of whose name was on the account. There's more, I continued. I need you to check county records for any property purchases in her name in the last 6 months, and check if she's still working at Meridian Pharmaceuticals. You think she quit her job? I think there's a lot I don't know right now. After the call, I sat down at my secure terminal and began my own investigation. In intelligence work, information is everything. Rebecca might have emptied our financial accounts, but she hadn't considered what other resources I had access to. First, I checked our cell phone account, which was in my name due to a military discount plan. 6 months of call records showed a recurring number that started appearing frequently about 4 months ago. Calls, often late at night, sometimes lasting hours. I ran the number through a database. James Harrington, 39. Financial advisor at Crestview Wealth Management. Next, I examined our credit card statements more carefully. Rebecca had been making regular purchases at high-end stores, Nordstrom, Saks, Tiffany, but none of these items had appeared in our home before my deployment. She'd also paid for weekly sessions at an expensive spa for the past 5 months, plus dinner reservations for 2 at restaurants where the average meal costs $200 per person. I accessed our Amazon account and found she'd ordered books on topics, like starting over after 30 and relocating to Costa Rica. International relocation guides were interesting for someone who had always claimed she could never live anywhere but Virginia. The most revealing information came from our joint cloud storage account. Rebecca had forgotten to log out of it on our shared iPad, which I'd brought on deployment. In a folder marked personal, I found emails she'd forwarded to herself, conversations with a real estate agent about purchasing a beachfront property in Tamarindo, Costa Rica. The price, $450,000, almost exactly the amount that had been in our joint savings, plus what she could get from selling her car. There were also photos, Rebecca and James on a boat, at a restaurant. In what looked like a hotel room, the timestamps showed they were taken while I was in pre-deployment training. By day 7, I had a clear picture. Rebecca had been planning this for months. The affair with James, the plan to take our money and start a new life abroad, the divorce papers filed strategically when I was thousands of miles away, unable to respond quickly. The pieces fit together, but one question remained. Why the urgency? Why not wait until I returned from deployment, go through a normal divorce process? Something wasn't adding up. The answer came from Michael the day before my flight home. "David, I found something," he said, voice tense. "Rebecca's being investigated by Meridian's corporate security. Apparently, there are irregularities with some of her client accounts, big ones." "What kind of irregularities?" "The kind that involve the DEA. Prescription diversions, falsified orders. They can't prove she was involved yet, but they're building a case. This could explain why she's in such a hurry to leave the country." The final piece clicked into place. Rebecca wasn't just leaving me, she was fleeing potential criminal charges. Our savings was her escape fund. As my transport plane crossed the Atlantic, I refined my plan. This wasn't just about the money anymore. This was about justice, not revenge, but accountability. Rebecca had betrayed not just me, but her company, possibly even the law. I wouldn't stoop to her level, but I wouldn't let her escape the consequences either. The first thing I did after landing at Andrews Air Force Base was check into a hotel under a different name. If Rebecca was monitoring my movements, I wanted her to think I was still overseas. Michael met me there, bringing the prenuptial agreement, copies of our tax returns for the past 5 years, and the results of his discreet inquiries. "She's hired Sanderson," he said grimly. "Carter Sanderson was a divorce attorney known for aggressive tactics, and she's moving fast. Court date is already set for initial proceedings next month. She's claiming abandonment due to your military service." Abandonment. I kept my voice level. "I'm deployed in service to our country." It's a garbage claim, but it buys her time. She probably assumes you can't get back to contest anything until your deployment ends. I opened my laptop and showed Michael what I'd found. The affair, the Costa Rica property, the suspicious work activities. "This changes everything," he said after reviewing it. "David, with this evidence, we can not only contest the divorce terms, we can potentially get criminal charges filed." "I don't want to destroy her, Michael. I just want what's right." He looked at me skeptically. "After what she did, this isn't about revenge. It's about accountability." The next day, we began implementing the plan. First, Michael filed an emergency petition with the divorce court, citing fraud and providing evidence of the emptied accounts. He requested an immediate freeze on any transfers of marital assets. Meanwhile, I visited our bank and met with the fraud department manager. I presented documentation proving I was an active duty service member, protected under the Service Members Civil Relief Act, which provides financial protections for deployed military personnel. "Mrs. Mercer claimed you had authorized the withdrawal," the manager said, reviewing the records. "She had a signed form." "May I see this form?" He slid it across the desk. The signature was close to mine, but definitely forged. I pointed out discrepancies, then provided samples of my actual signature from military documents, bank records, and our mortgage paperwork. The manager's expression changed as he compared them. "I'm very sorry, Major Mercer. This should have been caught." By the end of the meeting, they had initiated a fraud investigation and promised to help recover the funds. Next, I contacted our investment broker, who managed a separate portfolio worth about $95,000 that Rebecca apparently didn't know about. I had it secured with additional verification measures to prevent any access. 3 days into my return, still operating covertly, I received an unexpected call from Patricia Winters, head of security at Meridian Pharmaceuticals. "Major Mercer, your brother said you wanted to discuss a sensitive matter regarding Rebecca. I met her at a coffee shop near the Pentagon." Patricia was direct. "We've been investigating significant inventory discrepancies in expensive medications. The pattern follows your wife's sales territory. We've been building a case carefully, but if you have information..." I showed her what I'd found, the sudden cash influx, the Costa Rica property plans. Patricia's expression hardened. "She's planning to flee the country. This accelerates our timeline. What are you going to do?" "We'll be contacting federal authorities today. Major Mercer, would you be willing to provide a statement?" I took a deep breath. "Yes, but I'd like something in exchange. We can't offer immunity if she's committed crimes. I don't want immunity for her. I want coordination. I need time to secure our marital assets before you move. Once she knows she's under investigation, anything I haven't recovered will disappear forever." Patricia considered this. I can give you 48 hours. After that, we proceed regardless. The clock was ticking now. Michael expedited our court filings, requesting an emergency hearing based on the new evidence. Remarkably, we were granted a slot the next morning. I wore my military uniform to court. Rebecca's attorney appeared, but she didn't. When the judge asked about her absence, Sanderson claimed she was indisposed with health issues. The judge, a veteran himself, reviewed our evidence carefully. The account draining, the forged authorization, the affair, the foreign property inquiries. In light of the evidence presented, I'm issuing an immediate freeze on all assets held by Rebecca Mercer, he announced. Furthermore, I'm ordering the return of the withdrawn funds to a court-supervised account pending final divorce proceedings. Sanderson protested, but the judge cut him off. Counsel, your client has committed what appears to be financial fraud against an actively deployed service member. I suggest you advise her to comply immediately. When Sanderson called Rebecca with the news, her reaction was immediate. She called me 30 minutes after the hearing ended. David, her voice was a mixture of anger and panic. What are you doing here? You're supposed to be in Syria. Emergency leave, I said calmly. Funny thing happens when your wife empties your life savings and files for divorce while you're defending the country. I can explain everything. Save it for court, Rebecca, or for the federal agents. I hear they're very interested in talking with you. Silence, then. What agents? What are you talking about? Meridian's security team has been building a case against you for months. DEA is involved now. Something about prescription medication finding its way to unauthorized destinations? Her breathing quickened. You don't know what you're talking about. The Costa Rica property looks nice. Beachfront, right? Were you planning to invite James Harrington to join you there with our money? Another long silence. How did you... I gather intelligence for a living, Rebecca. Did you forget that part? The next day, Michael received notice that $213,000 had been transferred back to the court-supervised account as ordered. Rebecca was complying, likely hoping to mitigate the coming storm. I had kept my promise to Patricia Winters. The assets were secured. I called her at exactly 48 hours from our meeting. We're moving forward today, she confirmed. Federal agents will be visiting Mrs. Mercer this afternoon. I didn't want to be there when it happened. Despite everything, watching Rebecca being questioned by federal agents would bring no satisfaction. Instead, I met with a financial advisor to discuss rebuilding my life post-divorce. The news came from Michael later that evening. They took her in for questioning. Sanderson called to discuss a settlement. He wants to resolve the divorce quickly. Now, Rebecca was facing potential federal charges for prescription fraud. The evidence was substantial. Falsified orders, medications diverted to unauthorized channels, suspicious cash deposits. The affair with James Harrington complicated matters further. He worked with several of her clients, creating a web of conflicts of interest and potential conspiracy charges. In the end, we reached a settlement that was fair, if not particularly generous, to Rebecca. She would retain her personal property and her car. I would keep the house, all investments, and the returned savings. She would be responsible for her own legal fees in both the divorce and criminal matters. The last time I saw Rebecca was at the final divorce hearing 3 months later. She looked smaller somehow, the confident, vibrant woman I'd married, now replaced by someone hunched and nervous. Her criminal case was proceeding separately. She'd accepted a plea deal with federal prosecutors in exchange for information about others involved in the prescription scheme. As we exited the courtroom, she caught my arm. David, I'm sorry. I never meant... I gently removed her hand. Yes, you did mean it, Rebecca. You meant every step. You just didn't mean to get caught. She flinched as if I'd struck her. What happens now? You face the consequences of your choices. I rebuild my life. We move on. 6 months later, I was back at my Pentagon assignment, working with a cyber intelligence unit tracking digital threats. The Alexandria house had sold for a good profit in a strong market. I'd moved to a smaller place closer to work and invested the rest. Michael and I met for dinner regularly. During one of these dinners, he asked the question I'd been expecting, "Are you dating again yet?" I shook my head. "Not ready, maybe soon." "You know what still bothers me? You never seemed angry enough. If someone did to me what Rebecca did to you..." I considered this while sipping my bourbon. Intelligence work teaches you something important. Emotional reactions cloud judgment. Rebecca made decisions based on panic and greed. I made mine, based on information and strategy. "Still," he persisted, "don't you feel betrayed? Don't you want revenge?" I shook my head. "What would that accomplish? She's facing federal charges. She lost her career, her reputation, most of her assets. Her life imploded because of her own actions, not because I destroyed her." The truth was more complex than what I told Michael. Of course I felt betrayed. Of course there were nights I lay awake, replaying our marriage in my mind, wondering what signs I'd missed, what moments should have alerted me sooner. But dwelling on those feelings wouldn't rebuild my bank account or restore my trust in relationships. Instead, I focused on what I could control. I'd protected myself financially. I'd cooperated with authorities without seeking to make Rebecca's situation worse than her actions warranted. Most importantly, I'd maintained my integrity throughout the process. A year after the divorce was finalized, I received an unexpected email from James Harrington. "I know you have every reason to hate me," it began, "but I think you should know the truth." He explained that his relationship with Rebecca had begun innocently, a financial advisor helping a client. But as he learned about her pharmaceutical work, he'd seen an opportunity. He pressured her to help divert medications, using his client network to distribute them. The affair developed alongside the criminal enterprise. "She talked about leaving you before any of this started," he wrote, "but the plan to take the money and run, that was my idea. I was being investigated too. We were desperate." I didn't respond to his email. It didn't change anything, didn't heal any wounds. It was just one more piece of information in a completed puzzle. The final chapter came 18 months after that fateful email I'd received in Syria. I was having coffee at a small cafe near the Pentagon when my phone buzzed with a news alert. Rebecca had been sentenced to 4 years in federal prison for her role in the prescription fraud scheme. James Harrington received 6 years. I felt no satisfaction, no vindication, just a quiet acknowledgement that this chapter of my life was truly over. That evening, I sat on the balcony of my apartment, watching the sunset over the Potomac. My military career was advancing well. I'd recently been promoted to lieutenant colonel. The investments I'd rescued and carefully managed had grown significantly. I was dating again. Nothing serious yet, but I was open to possibilities. My phone rang, my mother calling for our weekly chat. "How are you doing, honey?" she asked, the question carrying more weight than just a casual greeting. "I'm good, Mum. Really good. You know what I admire most about how you handled everything?" she said unexpectedly. "You didn't let her actions change who you are. You stayed true to yourself." After we hung up, I thought about her words. In intelligence work, we're taught that information is power, that careful planning beats emotional reaction, that patience often reveals what impulsiveness conceals. These weren't just professional skills. They were life principles that had served me when I needed them most. Rebecca had chosen a path of deception and shortcuts. She'd thought she could outmaneuver me because I was far away, focused on my mission. What she failed to understand was that the same methodical approach that made me good at my job made me capable of protecting myself when threatened. I didn't need to destroy her. Her own choices accomplished that. All I needed to do was ensure that truth and accountability prevailed. As night fell over the city, I felt at peace with how everything had unfolded. My wife had divorced me by email while I was deployed overseas and emptied our joint account. But I had remained the person I was proud to be, methodical, principled, resilient, and that was the victory that mattered most.